Well, hello and welcome to Bathurst and Mount Panomara, or Mount Panomara, or Panomara, or whatever. So yeah, this has proved to be quite a tricky track to get to grips with. We'll certainly spend a little bit of time looking at the setup and definitely running out on the track and give us a run round. I'm not particularly 100% happy with the lap that I've managed to post. I think it's a 1:59.7. Certainly a better lap in the tune that's in use. I just can't seem to manage to get 100 to drive 100% for the whole lap and just really put a good lap together. A little bit disappointed in myself, to be honest, but it's been a great circuit to try, especially in the V8. I think in reality, I think Scott McLaughlin's 2-minute 3 lap isn't actually the current fastest lap at Bathurst. I think it's a guy called Shane Van something. I can't remember his name. Shane Van der Glaspender, I don't know, something like that. And he did a 2-minute 1:5 in the McLaren 650S GT3 car, but it's still a great lap, and the people that can get into a 1:58, totally take my hat off to you. It's a fantastic lap. So yeah, let's have a little look at the tune. Before I do that, just take a minute, if you will, to press that subscribe button, press a like or leave a comment. But I'm definitely trying to get more subscribers, try and build the channel a little bit. So if you enjoy what you see, please hit that subscribe button, and I'd really appreciate it. So let's have a look at the tune. So yeah, running with soft slicks. The guy that's posting right at the very top of the leaderboards has mentioned to try running hard tyres. I haven't done that as yet, but for this tune I'm running softs, slightly harder at the front, just to try and emphasise the softs at the rear really, and to try and give a little bit of a more direct feel from the steering, just slightly hardening the front tyres. Obviously we're going to try and run a softer tyre at the rear just to aid for traction. Moving on to brake pressure. Obviously if you're confident with your braking, obviously you've got no, I keep saying obviously, but you've got no traction control and you've got no ABS. So if you're good on the brake pedal and you can modulate how much you're braking, obviously you could put that a little bit higher. If you're not too good and you're locking out all the time, obviously you could bring that down a little bit lower. The brake balance is a very, very, very key part of this lap, and I will change this through the lap just at one point, just for one braking area in particular, but running 52 at the front, 48 at the rear. The brake duct's slightly open for this tune because obviously the ambient temperature is quite hot, so the brakes do get a little bit hot in certain points, so you're going to have to run a little bit of the brake ducts slightly open. Rear downforce, obviously we've got no front downforce, so we're quite limited with what we can do considering downforce and getting some aero working. And it's very surprising actually how little effect the rear downforce has. I mean, if you bump it all the way up to 10 and say you go down the first long straight, there's very little difference between, if you've got a good exit, both exactly exiting the corner at the same speed. If you carry the same amount of speed onto the straight, there's very little change in running 10 and running 4. You might lose maybe 2 to 3, I'd say 1 to 2 car lengths maximum down the straight. Whether that pays off dividends throughout the rest of the lap by having more rear downforce, I think between 4, 5 and 6, they're your sort of figures you should be looking at. The longitudinal weight bias, we're just trying to get traction from this rear end, to be honest, because there's no traction control, there's no differential setups. Just trying to get as much traction from the rear end so it's all the way to the rear. Moving on to suspension. The caster, I always have it set as much as I can really, because it's such a benefit to have. You don't get any of the negative aspects of having caster at a slightly greater angle, because you can reduce the force feedback through the wheel. Adding caster is just going to add a little bit more weight to the wheel, but obviously you can just dial out the extra weight that adds. But I like quite a heavy wheel, so adding the extra caster, which will just add a little bit more camber into each turn, but you don't get the effects of the camber on whilst not turning. Still just trying to gather as much grip as we can, so setting the camber angles in relation to the telemetry that you see, the tyre temperature, always trying to keep that internal tyre. If you imagine the screen as it is, obviously the inside tyre, the middle of the tyre and the outer edge, we're always trying to look for a hotter inside. You're always trying to look for the inside of the tyre being the hotter, maybe between about 10 to 5 degrees difference. Ride height, it's as low as it'll go on the front end. I have raised the rear end, but I have seen quite a few of the tunes where they run 70-70. But I just think it adds a little bit more stability through the rear end by just lifting it a little bit and having a little bit of a rake on the car. Spring stiffness, it's as stiff as it goes at the front. We're just trying to we're only trying to stiffen out the front to get more responsive driving through the turning phase of the corner. Because this car slides quite a bit, we're not trying to get too much grip at the front because we don't want to disrupt the rear as much. So by getting a stiffer front end, it just allows the turning phase of the corner to be a bit more accurate. Camber angle at the rear, running quite a high camber at the rear. Through a lot of the corners, we're going to be trying to get flat out. As soon as we're on the power, we want to get that power down. So if we've got a flat tyre through the corners, we're not going to get the grip through the corners at the rear. So trying to run a higher camber at the rear. As I mentioned, just lifted the rear ride height to just give a little bit more stability, give a little bit more effect from the rear wing as well. Slightly softer spring at the rear. It's almost maximum, just 2 clicks down really. I could probably bring this a little bit lower to get a little bit more grip, but it's obviously already a lot lower than the front spring. Steering ratio, as you all know, I'm running the McLaren wheel, so I'm not wanting to cross my hands and start feeding the wheel all silly. That's my maximum lock, and that's my maximum lock the other way. Running the toe angle, just to give us a little bit more positive response on turning. A slight amount of negative toe angle. The anti-roll bar is pretty stiff for the front, but if you've ever watched cars around Bathurst, especially the V8s, they're just absolutely solid. It's all about tyre grip, and just you want as little flex in the car as possible really. Rear toe angle, I have actually lowered this down to 2, and it adds such a negative effect on the last straight, the Conrad straight. I'd instantly put it back to 4. I just seemed to see my ghost gaining on me like I was standing still, and that was purely by just knocking that down to 2, so instantly it was back up to 4. But it just aids in the straight line stability, which is definitely what you need in this car. Anti-roll bar again, pretty stiff at the rear, it's almost maxed out. Just to try and keep the car nice and stiff, but obviously trying to keep the rear end gathering as much grip as we can. Slightly stiffened the front, obviously if we stiffen the suspension, if we go back, stiff suspension all round really, but as stiff as we can get it. So I just gave these a few clicks to stiffen them up a little bit. Didn't bother touching the bump or transition. And I haven't touched the ride height either, the bump stops, just left them as they are. Softened out a little bit at the rear because we've softened out the rear suspension. Obviously we're not running any fuel, air restrictions, we don't want any of that. Radiator, we're only running 1 lap, so we're managing with a closed radiator. Engine braking's quite specific at 2. We want a little bit of engine braking but not too much. The gear ratios, you can't really mess with them. If you change the gear, you're just literally making 4th gear, 3rd gear, and likewise if again you haven't really got any adjustment with this at all. It's a negative aspect for this. And I haven't touched any of these traction control because there isn't any, and there isn't any ABS. And to look at the differential, that's it. You've got your spool and you can't even turn it on or off. So you've got no adjustment in the differential at all to help with balancing the car in the slightest. So that's the tune, let's get into the lap. So where to start on this lap? Obviously you're going to be nailing the throttle as you come out of here, all the way up to 4th gear. We're going to be looking just on the right hand side here. You can see the 100 metre or 100 yard board. Well, if you imagine the lamppost that's next to it, the big green one, we're going to wait till the lamppost just after it. This is going to be our braking point, and we're going to quickly shift at this point down to 3rd, and then we're going to hold on to 3rd gear whilst we're braking all the way to the apex, and we're just going to dab into 2nd about here. And really, this is such an important corner to nail. You've got a massive straight, the mountain straight, right ahead of us, and you need to get as much power through this corner as possible. You need to carry as much momentum as you can. So you're going to run right the way wide, make this corner as wide as you possibly can. Coming right out onto the side here, not taking too much because you get a track penalty, but coming right the way out. And I can't emphasise how important that corner is to get right, because it impacts the lap so much. So just having a look at this turn 1 and how you can get it wrong, just a small mistake and then the ghost starts to overtake in the end of the lap really. And then getting it nailed, carrying the speed right through the corner, right out onto the curb, and then you can just wait for the rear view mirror to see the ghost pop up. So we're going to carry on down here. Obviously we're going to reach maximum speed, taking it all the way to the red line, and then changing before we start looking at our next point. So we're going to be hitting here in 6th gear, I think, or top end of 5th gear. And then we're going to be dropping down 2 gears instantly at this point, and then we're going to wait. Obviously we're still on the brakes, getting a good lot of braking as well done before the corner. And once we hit around here, we're going to drop down to 3rd gear. But you need to have got all the braking done to this point here, because as soon as you switch to 3rd gear, you're going to instantly be on the power, and instantly, as fast as you can, get into full power. So the foot's going to be flat on the accelerator. Now, I don't know if you can see on the corner here, the camber of the track. If you run offline off here, you'll go on to it almost has a convex sort of look to the track. And once you get on the other side of the racing line, if you run wide slightly, you've got a one-way ticket into these monster barriers, because you're not going to get it back. You're either going to run wide and take a time penalty, or you're going to have to lift out the throttle. Well, you need to be at full throttle as soon as you change to 3rd gear here. It's so important to get a good run up this hill. So just letting the car run wide as you can in 3rd gear, taking it all the way out onto this curve, and you can take you can take quite a bit of curb, but you can't run both tyres offline. And then you'll be up into 4th gear. So I don't really have a particular braking point here, because you're going to be turning in 4th gear, almost trying to aim at hitting the apex of the corner, because the car's just going to drift wide. And just as we come through the apex, you're going to start to brake really hard into 3rd gear instantly, and then hold on to 3rd gear while we're still braking, and then into 2nd gear for the apex. And then off the brake, and you're straight away onto the throttle, feathering it all the way around here. And then you're going to run as far wide as you can and keep the car as straight as you can. Doesn't feel like this is a massive corner, but if you don't take this with just a few turns of the wheel, just really tentative, you're trying not to scrub any speed, because as much speed as you can carry through here is going to take you all the way up this hill. So just as we get to this point here, you can just see the shadow on the wall. That's my only reference point, other than the fact that at this point here, I'm going to be at the top end of 3rd gear, and if you carry 3rd gear through here, you lose time. You need to be changing to 4th gear and be 100% on the power. There's no lifts through this corner. If you're going through this corner and you're lifting, you're losing time. So to nail this corner is one of the hardest corners, I'm telling you. The amount of times I've gone through this lap, reached this corner and just binned it completely. Because you're going to almost be turning in. It's almost like you're turning in like that. It's almost like you're trying to hit the apex of this corner. Because you're carrying so much speed, the car's just instantly going to drift. And it's almost like you're going to quickly just chuck the wheel in, as if you're going to try and drift through this corner, but not as aggressive as going to try and drift. But you're just trying to snap the car into this turn, because you're just going to drift all the way through here. You're going to miss this apex by literally a millimetre and carry it wide. It's just going to run wide itself. There'll be nothing you can do about it. And the last thing you want to do is touch this curb on the left hand side, because it'll just ruin the lap. You probably end up spinning off into the wall, and that's you done. Yeah, so if we just take a little look at getting it wrong and having to lift, and see how much time you lose there, and then at getting it right and getting just the right line, full throttle. If you've managed to get through there and you're carrying as much speed as you can, you're flat out 4th gear. Right about here, you're going to be hitting 5th gear, and you're going to be popping into 5th gear now. For literally a few yards before you're going to quickly drop down to 4th gear. You've not touched the brake pedal at all, you've just dropped it to 4th, and you're going to try and get through here by the skin of your teeth and run as much as you can. You're going to be scraping this wing mirror on the wall, you really are. That's how close it's going to be. And you might even get straight up into 5th gear, but at this point here, the car's just going to be totally unloaded, and you're going to be dropping down to 4th gear for a few milliseconds really, while you just get the car planted. And it's almost like you've turned the car in mid-air. You're turning before this corner's even started, because you're going to lose so much grip and traction through this sort of off-camber sort of dip, that as soon as you come through here, you're going to, again, it's like turning into this wall just to miss it. And then as soon as you're through this corner, flat out in 4th gear, you've still not touched the brake pedal at all. You're going to be into 5th gear, and you're just going to hope that you've managed to get enough turning to get into 5th and not run wide here. So you're going to be flat out again. You're going to have 2 shifts down to 3rd gear. And again, a very important corner. The car's totally unbalanced, but you're going to try and hug this right hand wall and try and get a good line to mount this curb, just a smidgen really. Still on the brake pedal, down into 2nd gear. The car's twisting and turning, And it's almost going to give you the momentum in second gear as you've turned to get through this corner. And you're just going to try and keep through this one as tight as you possibly can, because from this point here, your foot's going to be nailed full throttle, and you're going to be going sort of straight at this corner like that, and then you turn at the last minute. Or it's almost like turning before you're through the corner, but you're wanting to get through it straight. So at this point here, I'm going to have three clicks to change the brake balance more towards the front of the car. This is the only point on the lap where I'm going to be adjusting the brake pedal, because what's to come is probably one of the hardest braking points to judge and to balance. So you're up through the gears, probably up to fourth gear. At this point here, you're going to be braking, swapping down to third gear, back on the accelerator for a little dab at the accelerator, and then down into second gear. And the car's just going to be totally unbalanced coming through here. It's going to be wanting to slide. You're going to be trying to understand what the car's doing, but at the same time you're going to be braking and turning the car, and instantly that corner opens up. You need to be flat on that accelerator pedal, going full chat for this corner wall here, and then you're just at maximum speed. Still keeping the same brake balance for what's to come. Going to run slightly wide just onto the apron on the left hand side. Not too wide, just one wheel off the track coming in. And then just before, about here, you want to be quickly dropping 2 gears. And then we're going to carry on braking, but not dropping any gears, to a point where you just hear the car really slow down, and then you can drop another 2 gears as we come into this corner. I forget what that corner's called. I think it's called the Chase here. So just coming through here as flat as you can, as much acceleration as possible, all the way up to 5th gear, maybe just hitting 5th gear. And just on the left hand side there, we just went past it a tiny bit. I'll just back up. But yeah, just on the left hand side you can see the red and white stripes. And for me, I just sort of get to about the end of the red and white stripes before I'm braking really hard in a nice straight line all the way down to 2nd gear. And then we're going to take a nice middle apex really through the corner, running as wide as we can, carrying as much speed as we can, and obviously then you flat out on the pedal. And I'm not kidding you, to cross that line in under 2 minutes, you've achieved a massive goal. To me, I'd very much like to have got through there in a 158, and I've tried and tried and tried, and I have got 100% confidence that the tune on this car can do a 158. It's just nailing that perfect lap, and you need to be 100% in every single corner. You need to be flat on the accelerator through all the corners, not fearing that little lift off. There is no lift offs in the areas that I've mentioned. You need to be 100% flat on the power. If you're not flat on the power, you're losing time and you're going to be in the 2 minute area. So let's have a little look at the fast lap I managed to set, just to see how it's all done. I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. Obviously I'll leave the replay at the very end, but if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, take a minute and bang that subscribe button, hit the bell, bang a like, put a comment in the video. I'd really like a little comment if you would, on whether you prefer seeing the game footage as it is in its entirety, or whether you actually like to see the footage from the camera with me working the wheel. I think in my next video I'll be definitely looking at doing something with the field of view and just giving you this easy option on how to set your field of view up properly. Thanks for watching guys, and thanks for joining me again. Until next time, ciao for now.